Today on Locked On Red Wings, a controversy in Columbus spoils an otherwise fantastic Stadium Series game, and Detroit falls to the second wild card spot.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a sports writer for C&G newspapers, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University, ACHA, D1 men's hockey. Scotty, normally on these episodes, right, we do first thought, difference maker, but I mean, it's quite obvious what the main topic of conversation leading into this episode is, right? The no call on the high stick to Edvinsson that directly led to the game-winning goal just a minute after the Red Wings tied it up. Let's talk about that. Let's lead that off there because I think we can both be in agreement that that is the difference maker in this hockey game. So and let's go ahead. And your first thought, right? It's on top of everyone's mind. Where do you lie on that controversial no call and as the game in reflection too in the game as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really much of a stance to lie on. Like, I mean, it was clearly a high stick and it wasn't called and it happened right in front of a ref and it's still, nothing happened. And my favorite is the rules, they can't go and like completely change it, but just hearing the refs say, like, after review, there's no penalty on the play, like, is just kind of saltens the wound a little bit for sure. I don't really think there's anywhere else to lie, though. Like, it was pretty blatantly a high stick. It wasn't called. It directly impacted the hockey game, and I don't think it's fair to have one play be like the reason they lost. I don't think that it's an 100%. That's the only reason the Wings lost, surely, but like no game in the history of sports has done that, like truly one play. So like, yeah, I think it was kind of just put a downer on, as you said in the open, like what was a fantastic event for the NHL that I think was a wild success, and kind of sucks even from a non-Red Wings, like biased Wings perspective, just of like this huge game ends in a pretty ridiculous way.
Right. I think you're 100% correct in that there is like everything that's been said about it has already been said, right? We are coming in this is Monday's episode. You guys have already heard, you've probably already vented and have started to heal already as we talk about this missed non-call. The moment it wasn't called, it was over, because you can only review a missed penalty on plays like that if it led to an injury or blood on the ice. Well, Edvinsson was okay, despite it nearly taking his helmet off. So the moment the referee didn't see it or decided it wasn't enough for a call, it was over. And I do see, I think the point of conversation here is I think in the future you will see that change where it'll be potentially able to challenge that and be like, there was a missed high stick on this play, so therefore there should not have been a goal scored. I think that is something that has potential to be changed in the near future, especially with the CBA in the next few years ready to get re-upped. But I mean, as it is right now, like the Red Wings got hosed. They got hosed, and it sucks. It's awful, and it shouldn't have happened. And it's a disgrace on the league that, I mean, I didn't see the broadcast, Scotty, because I was there. And oh my God, talk about the emotional high, right? The Wings played an overall pretty solid game. They tie it up. I'm at the peak, right, man? I'm screaming. I'm going, yeah, they tied it up. DeBrincat scored again. Here we go. A minute later, that happens. Talk about the energy goes right out of my entire body. I was so sour because it hurts that's how it ended, especially after they fought so hard to climb back into that hockey game. So that even makes it worse, right? If they had just lost 3-1 and they didn't mount the comeback, that'd made it so much better. It's not just like the non-call, it's the fact that it ruined an otherwise great performance, and also like just a great game for the NHL standpoint, right? The NHL doesn't want that game to end like that. But what do you do? What can you do besides maybe implement a review system where there's no way to hold the officiating accountable for missing those type of plays?
Yeah, I think you absolutely do have to implement some sort of review system or make certain penalties, make a wider range of things just in general challengeable. Like that's really the only thing I can think of. If they don't want a pure, like, oh, we have to, like review everything and be super tedious, whatever, you could just make a wider array of things on the ice challengeable, including stuff
Right.
like that. I don't know. Like that's really
Well, and
that's
it's
it.
also too because this is the second time in a week's span that the officials have missed something that directly impacted the Red Wings, right?
Yeah.
Last week we got the missed head contact on Michael Rasmussen. He got suspended 3 games, but that doesn't make us feel any better. We lost Rasmussen for a week, and they didn't get punished in the moment.
Yeah.
Now a week later, they miss a high stick that directly results in a goal. So tensions are already high between Wings fans and referees when this happened because there's just no refs aren't made available to press afterwards. Like there's no ability to hold officials accountable when they mess up, which is nice that baseball's implementing that system now where they can review it. And I think it's nice. It's a double-edged sword. I don't mean to digress, but it's a double-edged sword too for when like pitchers or batters like argue it and it's like then the umpire is vindicated too. So I think that's a nice change where it's a two-way street where both can be vindicated. But it's really frustrating because there's nothing you can do besides be angry. But let's not also pretend, Scotty, that if there was a pie chart, right? I said this with Gil on Locked On NHL because we chatted a little bit ago. If there was a pie chart and this pie chart title was Reasons the Red Wings Lost, right? Number one, and probably like 66% of that pie chart would be the controversial no call. I think most people would agree. But let's not pretend the other 33% was just not poor defensive play or poor goaltending. They allowed 4 goals on 21 shots, 5 goals on 21 shots, but 4 on 20 when Talbot was in net. That is unacceptable. That's not good defense, especially in a game where you had 46 shots yourself. They played incredibly well, but they still are continuing to give up way too much easy offense in these hockey games.
Yeah, man. If you wanted to, for the sake of argument or just to like play devil's advocate a little bit, have a different difference maker than the no call, I think like Cam Talbot is a fantastic person to throw out there for that. Like, and I agree the defense was brutal and they left Columbus wide open in front of the net and in the slot, like seemingly the entire game. And that's completely unacceptable. And we'll talk about that plenty, but Cam Talbot was brutal, man. And like, maybe that's an outdoor game thing. They were talking about the wind on the broadcast. I don't know how much of a factor that actually played. They were, debating whether to even switch sides in the third period to, so one team didn't have an advantage and everything. Like I don't know. I don't know. Right. I wasn't on the ice in the horseshoe. I have no clue, but I can tell you that was one of I honestly think one of his worst performances as a Red Wing so far. And I think that, when you look at the scoreboard and the score bug in the third period, and you see that the Wings are down 2 goals despite having 40 shots and Columbus having like 15, it is upsetting.
Yeah, and I mean, the third goal and the fourth goal in particular are ones that stood out to me that I think ones our Talbot should have. He got caught hugging the wrong post. They came around the jammed at home for the third goal, partially on defense too. I don't know what Gus and Justin Hull are doing. They both got caught behind the net. On the fourth goal, and there's an argument to be made, and we'll talk about Albert Johansson and Simon Edvinsson here in a moment too, because probably after the break, because of their struggles recently defensively. But also, you made the initial shot. If he absorbs that shot, covers it, and doesn't give up a rebound, they don't score. So he made the initial save. That's great. And in theory, if you give up a rebound, that's when your defense should be there to bail you out. But if he does not give up a rebound on that shot, there is no goal. And he gave up a juicy rebound. Yeah. And, I mean, that leads us right into the Albert Johansson and Simon Edvinsson part of the conversation where I think they've been struggling lately. So I want to talk about them too, Scotty. So stay tuned for that after the break.
If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, with each 1 ounce serving having 6 grams of protein and giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, as I always tell y'all, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack on busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need some quick protein. They're always my go-to. And if you do love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are obviously a classic favorite as well. They're the best, and you can get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Just visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, I want to talk about Albert Johansson and Simon Edvinsson too, because this game kind of re-solidified a thought I've had at the back of my head for a few weeks now, but I was not quite ready to come on the air with it. And that's that I think the length and the grind of a full NHL season is finally starting to get to that pair in the defensive zone. And the couple of examples really speak out to me in this game. Red Wings have the league's worst penalty kill. That is well known. They only had one penalty kill in this game, and they gave up a goal on it. That's not new information. But that goal could have been so easily prevented if on that penalty kill, when the pass came out front, Simon Edvinsson had just used his body and his stick to lift Voronkov's stick. Simon Edvinsson was just standing right behind Voronkov, had his stick under his stick, but never made an effort to either use his size to box him out or lift his stick. Just a little bit lazy in front of the net, not paying attention to the fine details, and they score an easy goal, 5 seconds into their first and only power play of the game. And then, yes, I do have a problem with how they handled the game-winning goal. Edvinsson got high stick in the face. He should have been called. But can we also not agree that they handled that situation terribly, where they both converged on the same player, and Edvinsson tried to do a skating backwards hip check on a guy skating past him, and Albert Johansson waited way too long to pivot his hips to start skating forward. They both tried to take the same guy out at the same time and win a foot race, when one of them could have done that and the other one could have hung back a little bit more to play defense. It was just, I feel in the defensive zone, especially with a guy of Edvinsson's size, that he needs to be using his body a little bit more to clear out and create space. And I think I think a lot of this is just, because don't get me wrong, they're going to be very good NHL players, but these things have begun to show to me more and more in games that they have played in the defensive zone, that they just get more frequently hemmed in. They're not frequently enough clearing the front of the net. I think they're just getting worn down from the long NHL season, which is very common with guys in their first years, right? In their first full year in the NHL. We saw it with Raymond. He stalled in the second half of his rookie season. But it's just, I think that you're starting to see that second pair, which has been so good, start to struggle a little bit as the season comes to a close.
Yeah, and I think that is why going into the season, we were so adamant on getting improvements on the blue line, right? This, I can remember having the conversation over the summer about Edvinsson's role specifically, and it was, he is probably, at least we hope, going to end up being the second best defenseman on the team, but that also probably isn't fair. That is probably putting way too much weight on this young player's shoulders, and I think that games like this and situations like that are kind of why why it is so important to have depth on the blue line, and why when you have so many young players on your roster that things like this happen. And that reared its ugly head in this game, and I don't disagree with you at all.
And for what it's worth, he is still the second best defenseman on this team, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
And Albert Johansson, with them together as a pair, are still the second best pair on this team. And I think that's part of the problem, is that, excuse me, I had a short cough. is that they don't trust Justin Hull and Eric Gustafson. So they trust them so little that you don't have the opportunity to dial back a little bit their playing time and give them a little bit more rest, because you have to put them out there, because you can't have Mort Seider and Ben Sherrod out there. I mean, they had him out there for 25, close to 27 minutes in this hockey game, but you can't play them for the final 3 minutes of the entire hockey game. You got to put somebody else out there. And so you put your Edvinsson and your Johansson out there in a big moment, which is a big deal for young guys, right, to have that experience and learn that. But that's also because you can't trust Gustafson and Hall, who are just really, every time they take the ice, I'm nervous, man. I get nervous they're going to get scored on. And it showed in this game again, right? They didn't really get any ice time in crunch time of this hockey game. In fact, after the Red Wings tied up the hockey game at 3 apiece, they didn't play another shift the entire rest of the game. Those final 3 minutes, they didn't touch the ice because you can't trust them in those moments to keep the score even. So it's just, it drives home to me a need that this team has to acquire defense at the deadline. For me, I think that is their most pressing need. Comfer again proved to me that he can handle the second line center role. Rasmussen, I hope, will come back soon, right? We never got confirmation he's in concussion protocol, but if we are to assume that that's what it was, his 7 days should be up now, and he is, if he's healthy, again, if he's ready to play, he should be able to come back on Tuesday. So, I think we'll be okay. But defensively, they need to acquire somebody at the deadline, even if it's a third pair D-man, to help solidify that back end so you have more options in those moments. Because, I mean, if you continue the rest of the season with this core, Edvinsson and Johansson, I mean, there's 20-plus games left. It's just, I hope that they can handle it, but I'm seeing the cracks, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't even think setting the bar at a back end third pair defenseman is good enough. I genuinely and that's not to say that you bring in somebody that's, maybe second pair caliber and that they would move either of the two guys off of second pair, but you need to bring someone else that is good enough to get consistent playing time and take a little bit of the pressure off of those guys, or to even mix and match the lineup a little bit more. If Johansson and Edvinsson are going to continue to crumble and maybe their performance as a pair gets worse because of that, then you need somebody else to be able to plug and play. Maybe Alger goes back down to third pair. You acquire somebody to play next to Edvinsson type of thing. I don't think it's good enough to just get, a sixth defenseman.
You know who'd help this team?
Yeah.
Jeff Petrie.
I mean, yeah,
he's better than the third pair. He's a better third pair
than
option.
The current options, but I think the bar should be higher than his caliber too.
Yeah, I'm just saying that that would hit, as much as fans love to scapegoat Jeff Petrie, he is a better option on the third pair than either of the two guys.
Yeah, better than the current third pair is, can still not be very good. Is my point. That's been a low bar this season for the Detroit Red Wings.
So, yeah, it's funny, too, is as we talk about this hockey game, we're focusing a lot on the negatives because those negatives cost them in a pivotal matchup, right? 2 games against an opponent you were battling with for the first wild card. Now Columbus has leapfrogged you, and you're in the second wild card. And unless my math is wrong, you'll still be in the second wild card regardless of any of the results on Sunday. But it's a much tighter race now. You had the opportunity to really create some room and wiggle room, and you failed to do that. But far and away, this season is from over. They still control their own destiny. They still have the opportunity. I said it kind of weird, but you get my point. They still have the
hard time tracking that one, but I think we all get your point. Yes,
they still have the ability to make the playoffs. They still control their own destiny here, and they've not lost more than 2 games in a row yet in McClellan's tenure. So. And the game wasn't all that bad, right? They outshot them 46 to 21.
50 shots, yeah.
Right. I thought that overall they actually played a pretty great game outside of those defensive lapses that cost them big. Tighten those up, and all of a sudden this game is going the other way. They had 65% share of the shot attempts, a 69% share of the actual shots, and a 71% share of the expected goals, all at 5-on-5 in this hockey game. So not only did they score again on the power play, but their 5-on-5 play, they took McClellan's message, They took it to heart, and they were fantastic in this hockey game, but not good enough defensively to earn the win. And that's kind of what makes it sting, is they responded to the challenge by their head coach, but they don't have anything to show for it. And another reason why, again, that controversial non-call stings. Scotty, we need to head to another break, but when we come back, we'll talk about Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat, because obviously, despite the loss, those two were phenomenal. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat were phenomenal in this hockey game. Patrick Kane with 3 points, a goal and 2 assists, and Alex DeBrincat has 2 goals in this game, getting 29 on the season, one away from breaking 30, his highest goal total in the last 3 years. What'd you make of their performances in this game?
Awesome, man. Pat has been, if you want to talk about difference makers on the season, I really do think Cat is one of the first names I would throw out there. We just did it's not mid-season, but our all-star break, our Four Nations break, player evaluations like we do every year at this time of year. And we put DeBrincat in the exceeding expectations based on preseason. I think there is a real possibility where, the rest of the way, the Wings start obviously winning again, but, DeBrincat continues scoring at even close to the clip he's been scoring at, that when we do that again in the offseason, we're putting him in above and beyond preseason expectations. He has been so phenomenal. He's, assuming health, going to hit 30 at least. And he has been an X factor for this team.
Right. I mean, I think we just talked about him in the last episode, probably the episode before that, because he's a goal a game since coming back from Four Nations. And if you go back even further than that, I mean, holy crap, man. He's got, looking at his point totals here, he's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 points in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. 13 points in his last 9 games. I counted up by hand. So he's been great. And a lot of that has to do, too, because of the power play and playing with Patrick Kane on the power play. That connection appeared again in this one. Patrick Kane finding Alex DeBrincat sitting in the paint. Their connection is, what drives a lot of the offense on this power play. But I think a bigger thing in this game that stood out to me is that they scored 3 goals as a line, but 2 of those goals came at 5-on-5. And one of the things that we're pretty critical of is this team's 5-on-5 scoring. And that second line was the one that showed up. And notably, JT Compher, again, centering that second line, I thought he was pretty solid. So they're kind of proving my point that I think the second line is going to be fine with JT Compher, because while I don't think is having as great of a season, Andrew Copp's had a pretty solid season since McClellan's taken over on that second line. I think JT Compher is going to find similar success, and I think a lot of that has to do with how McClellan coaches them to play hockey. It's a little bit more free and instinct-driven. So I think that second line scoring twice at 5-on-5 is really, really reassuring. Of course, not getting any 5-on-5 goals from your top line is still a problem, but I still think they responded to McClellan's challenge, right? Larkin was named by name, called out by name. Both he and Lucas Raymond had 5 shots in this hockey game. So it's not that they weren't trying and they weren't getting chances. A lot of it was just failure to convert on 2-on-1s. They had like
everybody had 3 to 5 shots in this game.
Right.
They pushed 50, man. They were the better team for a lot of this hockey game. Really disappointing result for sure.
So I don't know. I'm not panicking. I think it would be ill-advised to panic at this point. And a lot of people are going to draw comparisons to the game against Ottawa. And I'm going to pause here and say, check out Max Bultman's article he wrote as a recap to this game, the Stadium Series game, because I feel he and I have kind of the same mindset. And it's a great 5-10 minute read, depending on your reading speed. I'm slower, so it's probably closer to 10 minutes for me. But he really summed up nicely why this is not Ottawa of 2 years ago. Ottawa, those 2 games proved that Detroit was a fraud, because in both games, Detroit was outclassed. And yeah, the Thursday game was a pretty pathetic performance. But Detroit came out on Saturday and they shot 40. They got the puck on net 46 times. Like, obviously, yes, there's defensive problems to be addressed on this lineup, but this is not the same team of 2 years ago. This team came out, this team performed, and they just didn't get rewarded for it. And that happens. But I was definitely reassured by the amount of effort in that hockey game. Again, there are still problems to be addressed, as I put, but this is not Ottawa of 2 years ago. This is a team that's still got the heart and the effort to try and win this hockey game and make the playoffs. So I'm not concerned, and I don't think that these two, I said it on Friday, and I'm going to stick with it, I don't think these two losses change your approach to the deadline. I think this team should be a buyer at the deadline. Not a huge buyer, but a soft buyer. But I think that they should add at the deadline to try and better their odds of making the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you, I think. This is a team that is still, at the time of recording, in a playoff spot. It's not like these losses completely remove you from, or it's going to be a huge uphill battle now. Like, as you put earlier, you're still in control of your own destiny. You are still in the driver's seat and still in a postseason spot. This isn't a complete collapse at the time being. And I think that the comparisons to other years are, I don't know. I think that in other years, it was you got completely dismantled and exposed, and it proved basically on national TV that you were not able to hang with bigger and better teams. And I don't know how you watch that hockey game, the outdoor game especially, and you watch that and come to the conclusion that they were outclassed and aren't a competitive hockey team. That was a fantastic game that they were the better team for a majority of. And I think that now it's just about trying to not have 2 losses in a row, become 3, become 4, become 5, and get this thing halted. And then once you get back in the win column, then eyes are going to obviously turn to the trade deadline, where I agree with you. They should be, adding assets to help improve their chances this year. And if you can get assets that help you next year as well, then even better.
Absolutely. Scotty, I want to turn our attention now to kind of the Stadium Series as a spectacle. I didn't see the broadcast, but I have heard very poor things. Was it terrible as people are saying?
Yeah, dude. They said that Sidney Crosby was playing in the game.
Did they really?
Yeah, dude. They said Stadium Series up next. There's a video going around. I don't know who originally posted the video of them recording their TV screen or whatever, but they literally, for the pregame, before the puck drop, it already was half an hour late because of a Tennessee basketball game. That was a very good basketball game, mind you, with a buzzer beater. It was kind of electric. But the game already got pushed because of that. Then they were hyping up the game, and they said that Sidney Crosby was going to play. Then they got the score wrong for Michigan, Ohio State's hockey game 2 different times. They were doing live cuts of an interview with Kirk Herbstreit while the game was activully being played, and you couldn't see the game on the ice.
They weren't doing the box and box. They were
no, dude. It was just full. It was an abs. It was really brutal. And I think a lot of the on-air hockey talent that ESPN has improved dramatically over the years. And I don't like to attack them specifically or personally, but the production of the broadcast was absolutely atrocious. Yeah.
Good to know. In terms of what it was like there, Ohio Stadium sucks. It's not nice. I don't know how old it is. I don't know anything about Ohio State's infrastructure, so to speak. But walking around there was it was ancient. It felt ancient walking around. And of course, it was all bleachers. That part didn't bother me. It was a college stadium. I expected that. But the lines were terrible, so much so that it took 20 minutes to walk through one intersection because it was a human traffic jam. And part of that was also how they set up the stalls.
People there, brother.
Also, part of it was also how they set up the stalls, though, because there were obviously pop-up stalls for the Stadium Series that weren't normally there, but they had on one side of the concourse a pop-up stall, and then on the other side of the concourse, they obviously had like a pop-up like concession stands, and these lines were meeting in the middle, and you could not get through. It was the game. Once the game started, it was a pretty good experience. I'm not gonna lie, it was a fun experience, but the concourse experience was pretty awful down there in the shoe. And also, from the moment we got to the border of Ohio, there was nothing but farmland until we got to Columbus. Nothing.
Well, have you ever driven to Ohio before? Like, is that
what reason would I ever have to drive to Ohio before this?
Driving anywhere. You didn't take like road trips literally anywhere. You have to go through Ohio. Well, pretty much.
But yeah, the game itself was a fun. Yeah, no, it was. We were looking for like a place to eat, like a restaurant to break up the drive, and we could not find a restaurant because there was nothing. Yeah, dude. We had to settle for a Taco Bell, which
then a whole lot of.
It was Toledo, then Columbus, 3 hours later.
It's Ohio,
but the game itself was a lot of fun. I thought I didn't care for like the Ohio State Spirit team and whatever. They really tried to hammer home and I get it. There was at Columbus Stadium. They really tried to hammer home the Ohio State versus Michigan, and I just find it so ironic because there's no Ohio State players on either team, but there's a lot of Wolverines. Like every time Columbus fans were talking smack and talking about how good Werenski or Fantilli was, I'm like, yeah, Wolverine. But it was a lot of fun. The fans were fun too. Like it was competitive. There was a lot of smack talk, but it was like you could tell like healthy smack talk.
Right, yeah.
You know, not like no one was getting mean. Yeah. Good-hearted smack talk. So the people were really good. I will say the people were fantastic. And 21 Pilots was fun. So I'm just rambling. I'm talking about my experience.
No. I think people want to hear what it was like there. I think that's good. That's a good conversation. Yeah, I've, for as much as I smack talk the state of Ohio and mostly everything in it, I have only had good experiences with the fans down there. Been to the Horseshoe for football, been to Cleveland for baseball a billion times, been to Cincinnati for baseball, been to Columbus for a few different things, hockey included. Yeah, I've always had really good experiences with their fans, even though I talk about Michigan supremacy while I'm down there.
Mr. Walmart Wolverine over here.
No, I meant the state, but no. That too, for sure.
I can confirm after making a trip to Ohio, Michigan has a lot better just simply because of the diversity of like landscape. Not that we don't have stretches of farmland and woodlands, but just like we have Traverse City. We have plenty of like very beautiful areas, and Ohio just felt like farmland. Anyways, I will say the best part of the night, outside of getting this hat and watching the Wings tie it up, that was exciting for a minute, was at the end of the night we found out our parking was free.
Wow.
That was a huge dub, and I don't know, give a huge credit to the city of Columbus for doing that. We parked at a parking garage like about a mile from Ohio State is like a medical center, and they were offering parking for the game, and we got a ticket and on the way in, and it said parking for the day was $13. That's still good. That's still great for this type of event. LCA would have marked up their parking garage to $80, like no doubt about it. But we got in, and we were thinking it was going to be $13. When we went to leave, every single pay station had like a thing that said no payment today. Payment resumes tomorrow at 12:01 a.m. Like they allowed us to park there for free. All the fans who came. That was goated.
That's super fantastic. Cool. Yeah.
So shout out to, I think that was part of the Columbus Medical Center. Shout out them. Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, previewing the game against the Carolina Hurricanes. A tough one for Detroit. Stay tuned. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.